Gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to discuss the importance of accepting that you are going to make mistakes. You know, on your personal development journey, there are going to be a few things that you are really motivated to achieve. There are going to be those key areas. Depends on your interests, it depends on the things you enjoy doing, depends on the things you want to do, that you lock in on and that you give so much effort, that you give so much attention, and you dedicate a lot of time to those areas. But look guys, there are going to be times where you slip up. There are going to be times where you make mistakes. A lot of young guys on their journey, on their self-development journey, put a lot of pressure on themselves. And I think, look, pressure is important. We should put a certain amount of pressure on ourselves, especially as guys, to get things done, because it keeps us accountable. And that accountability keeps us on the right path, in the right direction. But sometimes it's too much, guys. You need to start remembering that you're only a human being, you know, a flawed human being. And this idea that you're going to be perfect all the time, all year round, in anything and everything that you do is unrealistic. And it's actually detrimental to your development. Look, you are going to make mistakes. There are going to be things that you do that go against your growth trajectory. You know, you've been doing really well on this particular habit. You've been doing really well on keeping out this particular bad habit. And then you fail and you slip up and you make a mistake. Or you have a bad performance one day. But look, these things are normal and they're part of life. A misconception is that growth is a linear trajectory. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, when you take a step back and look at the graph, hopefully we're going in an upwards trajectory, you know, in this sort of direction. But along the way, guys, it's like the stock market. It's like crypto. There are dips, there are drops. And it's sort of unrealistic, guys, to expect that, you know, on your journey, it's just going to be this absolutely flawless linear process whereby there's never any stagnancy. There's never any regressions along the way. You know, it would be like watching a superhero movie, but the superhero just defeats the villain seamlessly. There's no effort. There's no struggle. There's no fight. There's no story of comeback or anything like that. Just he wins. You know, that's it. You'd come out of the movie theater and you'd feel a little bit disappointed, because you understand that in superhero films, it's not just about the good guy winning. Of course, we want that to happen. It's about the journey and the struggle, because it makes them relatable and it makes them human. So hold the same standard to yourself. Stop setting such high standards whereby you expect perfection all the time. You know, I make mistakes in my life. I coach. I've been coaching for a long time. I make this content with the intention to help men who are in a dark place or who want to level up their lives. But of course, I make mistakes as well. You know, I started off this channel making content that was self-reflections, basically. And over time, it's sort of adapted, and as I've done more of the coaching side of things, the content's changed a little bit, but often these videos are self-reflections, you know, that help keep me accountable as well, because when someone's on the internet and you're promoting a certain thing, it's in my book essential if you live up to that yourself. You know, you shouldn't be telling people to do things that you're not doing yourself or really trying to do yourself, you know. But I slip up. I make mistakes. And it took me a while to accept that that is something acceptable, that that's something okay. And when I did, guys, it was a bit of a freedom for me, because you realize that, look, I want to give absolutely everything I can to achieving my goals. I want to give absolutely everything I can to put in the best effort into anything as I possibly can. But if I fail and I slip up, we move on. Now, this is another thing, guys. When you slip up and when you make mistakes, don't punish yourself. Don't sit there and wallow about it for too long. Of course you can be upset. Of course you can be frustrated. Those are natural human emotions. But don't punish yourself. You know, there's got to come a moment, guys, you make these mistakes, you slip up, and you say to yourself, right, back to it. You know, couple of minutes to think about it, couple of minutes to reflect, and then back to it. Because, guys, you are going to make mistakes. It is part of being human. And look, I ask you, like the example I gave earlier in this video about the superhero movie where the superhero doesn't have any struggle, he doesn't have any story, he doesn't have anything to fight against. You know, everything just goes seamlessly, everything goes smooth. Do you really want that for your life? You know, because part of these struggles and these setbacks and these failures that is so important in our life is who we become because of them. You know, you only learn so much from winning. You know, when you win, you've normally done one thing right. You've normally aced one area and, you know, you're really happy. There's not too much to learn. You know, you can say, I did that really well, but when you lose, there's a million reasons why you lost. There's a million things you could have done better. So rather than seeing these slip-ups and these setbacks as a failure and being too harsh on yourself and punishing yourself, appreciate the failure, appreciate the setback, because it is going to improve you in one way or another. Of course, you don't want to fail every day. You don't want to go back on your word. You don't want to get into bad habits too much. But there are moments, guys, where as humans, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to slip up. But when it happens, learn from it. You know, learn from it. See it as a positive. Although it's a negative, try and see it as a positive, because I don't know if you really want this upward trajectory with no hiccups, no bumps, no nothing, just smoothness. Because what are you going to learn from that? You know, one day, if that's the track record you've got and everything goes smooth all the time for you, one day when something bad happens, are you going to be equipped to deal with it? You know? So I would say, look, embrace the slip-ups, embrace the mistakes, but don't be too harsh on yourself, guys. It's really important, because if you are, then you're just going to set this standard of perfection that does not match the human body. It does not match the human spirit. You know, we are naturally flawed individuals. You know, some of the thoughts we have often are bad. You know, we have bad thoughts, we have selfish intentions a lot of the times. There's a Robert Greene quote that basically says every human is a narcissist in some way or another. We all think we are the main character. We walk around, we live our lives as the main character. But guys, sometimes you need to take the pressure off yourself and realize I'm just a human. I'm just a human, I'm gonna make mistakes. But when I make those mistakes, I'm gonna learn from it. And that's the next step, guys. That's the next step. You can, of course, be upset. You can, of course, be angry. You can, of course, be disappointed in yourself if you make these mistakes, but not for too long. Don't wallow. And don't set this standard of perfection that is not going to work in the long term. But look, guys, I really hope that in one way or another you took some value from this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel, smash the like button, comment your thoughts down below. I run a free men's Discord community. If you guys are interested in joining, hit the link down below. And if you're interested in one-to-one coaching with me, the link is also down below. All you got to do is book yourself a slot, and I will see you on the other side. As always, guys, thank you for your time and attention, and I will see you in the next one.